entertainment, insights. Don't take life too seriously. Welcome to Brainsky Unleashed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Brainsky Unleashed. Today, I'm being joined by Katherin McChord. Katherin McChord is a passionate lover of all things HR, which for most people is not popular, but that's why I wanted to talk to her. And she is unafraid to attack life with vengeance. And so, Katherin, welcome to the program. Let's get talking.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. That was actually a very unique intro for me, and I rather liked it. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I am so glad I did not let you down on that one. So for the audience, why don't you just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and why why would I introduce you in that way?
So I am a lover of all things. Actually, I say people operations because I don't enjoy very much like the audit side of HR and like benefits and that kind of stuff. So very much the human side of HR. And I am extremely passionate about that. I have been for many, many years. I was even the little girl that was playing HR with my mom and interviewing her. And I even fired my own mother when I was 5 years old, like in a game
You
that we were playing.
fired your mother.
Yeah.
Did you fire her professionally?
According to her, I did very well. I really did. She said you were so like concise and you gave me all the details as to whatever it is I thought that she did wrong, and that I let her go. So she said I actually did a very good job.
Now, did you fire her in a good job, in a good way in today's standards? Because that goes back to 5 years old. So the standards probably changed for terminating people.
Actually, from what she tells me, and keep in mind, I don't really remember this very, very well. I do know that it happened. I don't really remember it very well. She says, actually, I did a good job, that firing could hold up. So I'm actually pretty proud of that. At the age of 5, I nailed it. So I do I professionally have done everything, hiring, firing, and all the stuff in between. But now I spend most of my time traveling, both the country and a little bit internationally as well, speaking on what it means to lead people first, what it means to truly have inclusion, what that actually looks like. And then I specialize in neurodiversity, which is a medically visible or diagnosable difference in how you process information and stimuli. So everything from like cerebral palsy and epilepsy all the way over to obsessive compulsive disorder, broad spectrum of things. And I go around talking about that and teaching people to break their ego mechanism, respond in curiosity, and how to lead with psychological safety and vulnerability and what all of that actually looks like. That's my life right now.
So neurological diversity, can you kind of go into that?
Yeah. So that's actually a passion of mine. It's something I find fascinating. And for years, the scientific and medical communities treated these conditions. And some other examples would be like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, bipolar, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, these types of things. And these things were treated as only disability for many, many years. And that was all there was to it. But our bodies are not designed that way. Our bodies are designed to compensate and to be strong. And so what now the scientific community has finally started to realize, they've kind of caught up with those of us that are actually in the community, is that these things are not a deficit. They're just different. So for instance, if somebody with dyslexia, they may struggle to read as we read or, things like that. But what they are very strong with is innovation, creativity, empathy, these types of things. So the brain,
just like this guy, because I've got that.
See, there you go. And it's one of those things. So other people in the community have hyper speed learning, hyper analytics, 3D model thinking, brutal honesty, which I just love. They call it vigorous honesty. And so there's many different gifts within that community as well. So it's the idea, the term neurodiversity not only refers to, being diverse, but it's the idea that different is not a deficit. And science now backs that up. And by the way, anybody wants to look that up, National Institute of Health, National Library of Medicine, Harvard, the list goes on. Hewlett-Packard has done beautiful studies on this. So it is a proven aspect now that neurodiversity is just a beautiful variation of the human mind.
Okay. So being a small business owner, I operate in different sectors. What would your message be to somebody like me as far as either hiring or working with, coaching, building up someone who is neurodiverse?
Right. Really, the advice is very simple, and this almost applies to it really applies to everybody that you hire, which is encourage people to work in ways that are natural to them. So, the human experience is wildly diverse, right? And our needs are wildly diverse. How we learn, how we communicate, how we best function, and think about all the people you know. Everybody's a little bit different. Well, when you support people working in a way that's natural to them, then they work more effectively. So take Hewlett Packard. They developed a neurodiversity cultivation program as sort of an homage to their neurodiverse founders, right? And what they did was they just told everybody, okay, whatever you need to work, however you like to work, just do that. So you had people that formed symbiotic work cells, which is when multiple people come together to cohesively successfully design and carry out a particular workload. And uh, then you had people pacing around, noise canceling headphones, partially remote, fully remote, in office, different forms of lighting, sitting on yoga balls, not desk chairs, just whatever they needed to be comfortable. That's what they did. Camera off meetings, whatever. And it worked so well that that team became 33% more productive than its counterparts. And the people were more innovative, happier, healthier, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually even, customer satisfaction went up and profits grew. So, and that model has since been expanded into other businesses. Others have taken that and learned. And that's a lot of what I teach. I teach it slightly differently than them, but much along the same lines. So the idea is that you hire in a way that is more natural to people, and that you then lead in a way that is more natural to people, and just, getting rid of these ridiculous accommodation processes. It should just be standard options. Just, hey, these are the things that you need. Great. Here you go. Poof. And then if something's expensive, you can have a little bit of a profit for that, but, process for that. Sorry, not profit, process for that. But 54% of accommodations are free, according to the Department of Labor. And so why not just have them be standard options, right? So it's just flexibility and leading people in a way that's natural for them, and making accommodations in the standard options. There you go.
What would you say to a scenario, say maybe like an assembly line that's an established assembly line that has certain processes? How would someone neurodiverse fit into that, as you can't necessarily change the assembly line or the process itself?
Well, you can. So here's the thing. So first of all, most people in the neurodiverse community are not going to apply for a job like that are not already wired that way. Now, there are some people in that community that are wired that way, that would love it, and they would just fit in and fly with it. But I've been asked that a million times. It always makes me laugh, because you absolutely can still accommodate people. So for instance, some people say, oh, you have to be able to stand to work in this assembly line. No, you don't. You can have a standing chair, like have, a collared chair, that kind of thing. So it's the same kind of idea. So if somebody, is wanting to do something a little bit different, then you just find an accommodation for that and find out how to make it work. It can also be a training issue. You may not have trained them appropriately for in a way that works for their brain. So that's the thing. But honestly, most people, think about it, you're not going to get a hyper creative person applying to be in a simple line. That's just not really a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, or you do is you move them to a different job and say, you're a great employee, but this is not the right job for you. Let's put you over here.
Yeah. And that does make sense. Even from, from my personal vantage point, and I've hired all kinds of different people. We found that some people will hit like a mental plateau depending on, what the task is that they're assigned. They may have a certain, level to get to a point, and they go where they're successful at doing certain tasks, but they can't seem to get past it, no matter what different types of training that we've done. So we will accommodate the best we can possibly by, having them do a different task, at which point they generally excel.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. And I tell people that all the time. If somebody's not succeeding in a role, they're in the wrong role, or they've, had poor training. But if you've done everything that you can, but the other thing is making sure that you're training in ways that are effective to them, not just your way. Yeah. I had a very funny lesson on that at one point in my career, but really we need to get past this idea that, everybody can do everything. That's just not it.
That's not how humans work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're
all the case. I'd be a long jumper.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I love, there's a comedian named Josh Blue, and he has cerebral palsy, and one of his arms is constantly shaking. And he goes, I hate when people tell people with disabilities, you can do everything. He goes, do you really want to be in a hospital needing heart surgery and see me walk in there to give it to you? Like, really? And I love that joke because, A, it's just, it's so true. And then B, it gives light to the fact that it's okay that we have strength, and we can always get better at things, where we're not so strong, but that we should be steering into our strengths and rolling that direction, and that it's okay if that's not for you and you just move on. I've tried a data entry job for all of 5 seconds in my career, and immediately realized I did them a favor and quit. But I was like, dude, y'all are going to end up firing me because this is awful.
But see, what you said though doesn't necessarily jive with the popular belief of everyone could do everything, right, which is not true.
No,
we want to feel that way.
Yeah,
but it's not true.
No, God, no. I know so many people that tell me that they want to be in recruiting and HR, and I have to look at them very honestly and say, you are amazing. Here is a list of things that I think but this is not the field for you. This is not it. And especially people that can't be objective, you should not be in HR. Do not be in HR. If you can't be objective, that's not a thing for you.
You're doing no one any favors.
No one any favors at all. In fact, you're going to do a lot of harm. And it's the same kind of thing. At one point in my own career, I had to accept that I should not medically be a nurse. At one point, I was very determined to be an oncology nurse, and I have heart problems and neuro problems. That it became very clear very quickly that wasn't going to be a very smart choice for me. So I said, okay, no problem, and pivoted to something else. And now I'm extremely happy doing exactly what I ought to be doing.
So right now you've spoken at the UN. That's a big deal, right?
Well,
Brainsky Unleashed is powered by ProfitMax. Did you know that 93% of businesses overpay on their taxes? Do you pay too much in taxes? A recent study showed that businesses are overpaying between 34 and 71%. ProfitMax has proven, legal tax strategy solutions to reduce your tax burden. I'm not only a client, but I even joined the team to help other business owners just like me pay only their fair share and nothing more. Go to profitmax.co. That's profitmax.co. Profitmax.co to find out more. You can even connect with me there, as you should. And I'll help make sure that your tax bill is legally as low as allowed. ProfitMax. Keep your catch.
Well, at a UN event. No, I wasn't in the United Nations building, but yes, I was at a UN sponsored event.
Spoken at a UN event. You talked, at an event sponsored by the UN. Yeah. That's somewhat of a big deal.
It was cool. It was cool. I'm not gonna lie. That was pretty cool.
You consult, you talk to businesses.
Yeah.
All of these things you're doing despite the fact that, maybe there are challenges like data entry that suck. But you are excelling in life, because there's always a way.
That's right.
And I think that's a great way.
Yeah, thank you. And I do. And it's funny, I have 6 invisible disabilities, and my doctor keeps trying to add another one. And I've just told her, no, we're going to cut that off. We're cutting it off at 6. No more. No, thank you.
Half a dozen is fine.
Half a dozen is fine. Yeah, see, I feel like that's a nice round number. It works for me, So, and I mean, it's funny because a lot of people...
7's a lucky number, though.
Not for me. No, part of my OCD is I have to have even numbers. So, look, we either got to be at 6 or got to go to 8. Take your pick. There is no 7. And she always, cracks up at me. But, it's one of those things that a lot of people go, oh, you're so successful in spite of these things. And I always laugh and say, what do you think? I can take them off and set them down somewhere? This is just part of me. And it's not in spite of, honestly, I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for these things, especially my neurodiversity. So I just said I have obsessive compulsive disorder, and that can be very frustrating sometimes, but in other ways, it's made me, astronomically organized. And so I can organize anything.
That is probably entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. So it works. It really works. And then with my bipolar, mania can be frustrating sometimes, and you have to learn to manage it appropriately. But when you do learn to manage it appropriately, it becomes a huge benefit. And now I work at lightning speeds. I had a former employer who thought it was fascinating and did kind of an experiment and figured out that I could do the work in one work day, I could do the work of 2.6, what it took 2.6 other people to do. So basically I could do, one day of work in about, sorry, 2.5, almost 3 days of work in about one day. So it's,
Can you dive into that just a little bit for
yeah,
a second? Because, I know a lot of people would look at, oh, I don't want to hire this person. They're bipolar. They disclosed it,
yeah,
or they're afraid of that, or,
yeah,
somebody works on the team and all of a sudden they've disclosed that they're bipolar and people, they get taken aback by that.
yeah.
But I mean, you just turn that into a massive positive.
Heck yeah. And I'm super
So
creative like that
how
too.
does that work? How can that become a massive positive?
It's really learning to manage it appropriately and take care of it. It's already there. Like I said earlier, we're designed to balance out, right? So yeah, you may have a struggle over here, but then you'll have a strength, over on the other side. And so it's just a matter of learning to manage it appropriately and learning how to use it. And we're
But
finally,
like if you were talking to somebody who was bipolar and you're like,
yeah,
listen, Bob, you're bipolar. We've talked about it. We
yeah.
agree. You've got a job. Instead of letting this negatively impact you in your job, what would you tell Bob to do to be effective and how to manage?
So I'm going to give some very generic advice and then just
Sure.
know that it gets more specific to the human. So, and there, I do have specifics. And for anybody listening, if you want to reach out, I have no boundaries on these things. Feel free to reach out and ask questions. Um, so the first thing that I like to tell people is that you need to chart yourself. You need to come to understand what's happening with you and all that. So as things are here, so you need to start mapping yourself while you're at your plateau, right? And map yourself all the way through a cycle, which is long. So by the way, a lot of people don't know that. Bipolar is not like you're erratic and you're all over the place, right? It's long of one, long of the other. And usually one is stronger than the other and all this. And then there's bipolar 1, bipolar 2, etc. But so so I'd say start mapping yourself. So everything that you're doing, write it down and how your body is responding to those things. And by the way, it doesn't take that long. I did and still do this process, and it's very quick. It's just little notes in a notebook or on an app or whatever you like. And this is what's going here. This is how my body's responding. This is how my emotions are responding. This is how I'm affecting the world around me. And you kind of go through those 3 steps. You map yourself, and then you start learning from that. And you go, okay, so when this happens, then I can, if I change this trigger, then I'll have this response instead of this one. And these are the boundaries that I can set up for myself so that these negative things don't happen, but that I can shore with my mania, right? So I have been happily unmedicated for 24 years of having
Wow.
this condition. I do have a pill that I can use if I'm having just a super bad mania episode, meaning that it becomes unpleasant for me physically, which does happen. But I didn't even have until 2 years ago when I hit menopause. So it's, you can do this. You can manage it successfully, be happy and healthy in your life, just learning to better understand your body and your chemicals. And then learning how to turn them off and on. And you can't do that entirely, but you can start to manage how those things affect. And then changing your diet is another big one, and eating appropriately for the chemicals being released in your body. Because if you have, let's say, a whole bunch of dopamine coming out, you don't want to eat foods that then increase the dopamine levels or the adrenaline levels, right? That's no good. So what you want to do is counteract that. Maybe get some oxytocin coming out, eat some things that are going to be very soothing, very comforting, very calming. Watch what the music you're listening to, because that changes your brain chemistry and neurofunction. So learning to map and understand yourself, that's how you accomplish that. And that's how you steer into it.
So listening to death metal or gangster rap while having an earpiece in your ear in the workplace, if you have this condition, is probably not wise.
Actually, quite to the contrary.
Really?
Sometimes
yeah.
it can, depending on what those types of music do for you. So there are bands in heavy metal that I will listen to that actually soothe me and get the right chemicals coming out. There are a couple of rap songs that would fit into that too. Now there are others that I got to avoid like the plague.
Nice.
So it's just whatever it releases in you. Now, my husband, he will listen to death metal and heavy metal all day long, every day. But it just depends on you and your chemistry and that type of thing. But just whatever it does for you, that's what you steer into.
Okay. All right. So we're running a little short on time.
Sorry.
But and that's okay. Actually, it's been kind of fascinating. What would you? I guess what would be like? I guess the main overarching takeaway that you want anyone who is listening to you right now to know.
Stop assuming stuff. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ask people. This is one of the main things I teach is breaking that ego mechanism that we all have inside of us. Don't feel bad that you have it. We all do. But learning to recognize it, stop it, and then respond in curiosity and just talk to people. What can you do? Cool. All right, let's go with that. Having those discussions that are open-minded. Like I just did a talk and I pointed out that on a very controversial issue, both quote sides of the controversy they actually have the same goal, which is ridiculous. They actually have the same goal. They're they're arguing about how to get there, being hateful and nasty to each other about how to get there. Like, well, that's dumb. If you have the same mission alignment, come together and just have a discussion. So that's it. Just, get curious, come to understand other human beings and stop assuming. It doesn't work.
Well, assume always makes an ass out of you and me.
True.
I always remembered.
That's a good one. It's so cheesy, but it's so good.
It is so cheesy, but it's true though. I hate assuming. It's like, how can anyone expect any of us to be a mind reader? Like that is not a talent.
Like, why do you think I'm psychic? I do not know this stuff. Even in inclusion stuff, I tell people all the time, people don't know if you don't tell them. Tell them something's a problem. And then if they don't do it, then we can talk about how they suck. But before that, just tell people, let them know what's up.
I mean, let's be honest. Most people do not have this hatred or this anger in them to where they're trying to hurt people. Most don't, but yet we make assumptions and it just starts to offend people. And it all goes south from there.
It goes real south. And it's that ego. See, we're coming back to the ego. We assume that everything should be as we like it and everything should be what works for us. But our reality is based on our needs and our experience. And we don't think outside of that. So it's the ego and it's the assumption. And it's just cut it out. Just stop doing it.
Damn right. Okay. So how do people learn more about you, find you, get in contact with you?
Yeah, I'm all over LinkedIn. Come find me, have a conversation. I'm always down to talk about any of this stuff and more. You can check out my show, Career Launch Live. And then you can also go to titanmanagementusa.com. And that is my primary work site. And then I have a new project. I'm super excited about this. Actually, the first show that I'm talking about it's called the Neuroverse. It's join the neuroverse.org. And the Neuroverse is NEUROVERSE. So join the neuroverse.org. And that's all about neurodiversity. And it's all about education, events, community, resources. We're going to be doing some cool stuff in New York next year, So definitely check that out as well.
Join the Neuroverse. Do it. And if anyone is curious even about, say, what kind of death metal or gangster rap that Katherin has on her iPod, you can also reach her and ask that. I'm sure she'd be happy to share
I would be very happy to share my music with you anytime.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining the program.
Thank you.